Hey, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Walking with God. I'm your host, Kyle Walker, and I want to thank you for joining me tonight. I know that things are a little strange as it is now Wednesday, August 29th, 2018. I do apologize for being delayed last night. Had a commitment that I had already previously made back when I didn't think this show was going to be back on the air until September. So rather than trying to get 9 other people to bow to my schedule, I went ahead and changed things around. So again, thank you for putting up with the delay. I do apologize. And I can now see people are hopping in as the show's getting going. It looks on my screen like I am a little blurry tonight. I will let you know that I had some technical difficulties before we started. So I've actually gone into a new program to try and get the show to go. So we're going to see if this works. So far, so good. I can at least see as people are coming in. And I think if anyone comments, I'll see that too. So this could be kind of neat. Normally I start the show by saying thank you for joining me, and of course I mean that, but I really want to express, I do want to thank everyone for the time that they take to tune into the show, and whether you watch for 30 seconds or 30 minutes or the whole thing or whatever the case might be, I really do appreciate it. My schedule has shown me just how busy life can get, so for those who take any time to listen to this, I do really appreciate it. I just want to stress that to you coming right out of the gates. That it means a lot that people would take their time to listen to this teeny tiny little show. So again, thank you for that. Also, along the line of thanks, I want to thank Joe for being here last week. We got great feedback on the show that we did. What if the church hurts you? People acknowledge that that's a very difficult subject, and we approached it as best as we could. And I know that Joe, being a pastor and being a member of the church, this was big for him to be able to discuss and to really kind of get his thoughts and opinions out there. I am very glad that we could use this platform for him to do that. So I think that was a talk that needed to be had. And again, that was only the beginning of a conversation, a much bigger conversation that needs to continue and needs to just reach all ends of the earth, because there is a problem and people are being hurt by the church, and that is unacceptable. If you've opened the Bible and read anything, you'll realize that what's happening is wrong. Like we said last week, it is wrong. It's a sin. It is illegal, and things need to continue to move forward to help heal the people who have been hurt, and to really let's just call these bad things what they are and deal with them the way that they need to be dealt with, whether that be spiritually or legally, if that's what needs to happen. So I'm glad we started that conversation last week. Don't be surprised if we return to that conversation at some point in time. Again, anytime Joe is on, we're going to try and tackle more difficult subjects. And so this was just the tip of the iceberg. But Joe will be back on September 18th. He is bringing Amy back with him, which is awesome. Super excited to have them back here. And we will just continue on. So as I want to share with you kind of a cool story that happened just this week, actually. And we're kind of continuing on with the show, with the split from the previous host to doing our own thing now. And this week I had 2 people who actually wanted to talk to me about the show. And I thought that was really kind of cool. But what they wanted to talk to me about was, with this change, they would kind of like to see the show become more than what it was when it started. And when it started was just a show for divorced people, led by a divorced guy, to try and go over experiences and avoid mistakes and just talk about the things that happens through the divorce process. And we did a lot of that. We've done tons of that. And in my heart, that is still what the show is about. But as these 2 married men with families talk to me, they would love to kind of expand the reach of this show. Now, what I told one of them was, I feel like I'm not really qualified to talk about married life and to give any advice to married people. But then again, I look back, I was with a woman for 11 years. We were married for 7 of them. I've got the 2 kids. I've had the experience, and I know I could sit here and tell you the things that you could do wrong. But he really kind of, explained to me, it doesn't really matter my current situation. I've been there. I've done it. And so I'm hoping that we can expand the reach of this show a little bit, not just for the divorced people and not just for the single adults. I would like it if we could become a more, all-encompassing show where we can just talk about things, things that affect the married people, things that affect the divorced people, things that affect the single people, things that affect the parents, things that affect people who aren't parents. And we're doing that. I think that since we've returned, we are branching out. But, you know, I do want to hit on topics that pertain to married, divorced, single parents, and of course the church and what is going on with the church, both good and bad, because trust me, it's not all bad, even though after last week's show you might think that. So it was really cool to talk to those two gents who enjoy listening to the show but want me to expand the reach of it to try and reach more people and just kind of speak into more lives as best that I can, which yeah, I do my best, but you know, I'm doing what I can here. So anyway, that was neat. And that is kind of the end of our housekeeping tonight. So as is the very sad tradition of this show, we got to discuss the hat tonight. The hat, of course, is that of the Jacksonville Jaguars. If you happen to be listening to the podcast, we will have the picture of it out on Instagram. But of course, Sunday was when Jacksonville was in the news for all the wrong reasons, as there was yet another terrible shooting that happened on Sunday in Jacksonville. So I'm going to talk about it a little bit. You know, as is customary on this show, I'm not going to give the particular shooter. I'm not saying his name. We don't hardly acknowledge him. But this shooting, I felt, really illustrated my point from a couple weeks ago. And it's only because this is tragic. That is number one, tragic and a terrible event. It's also ridiculous and infuriating. And I'm going to explain to you why I think this way. Because in our increasingly common world right now of, you know, the whole everyone special participation trophy, blame everyone else for your problems, never take responsibility for yourself, we have the situation that we had in Jacksonville, Florida on Sunday, which is the most ridiculous shooting I think I've ever heard of. So what this was a video game tournament for a football game. This was a football video game tournament. And what happened? Was this random? Was this an act of terrorism? No. This clown, this human piece of filth, lost. He lost a game and took his gun out and started shooting people. Now, hey, I could be wrong in my opinions, and I always welcome you to give me feedback and disagree if you want, but this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of by way of a shooting. There's never a good shooting. Let's be really clear on that. But by way of shootings, this might be the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. This guy couldn't take a loss, and so he's going to kill people because he couldn't lose a video game. I am seriously at a loss for what to say about that. And look, here's the deal. I am a professional loser, and you can take that joke however you want and run whatever direction you want with it. But I was sitting there preparing for the show, and I was kind of looking back at my career of losses, okay? So I remember way back when I was way more athletic, I played in a recreational basketball league with a bunch of my friends. We went for 3 straight years without a victory. We didn't win a game for over 3 years. We lost. We went 0 for however many games were in that season for 3 straight years before we finally got one. And by the time we were done with our careers in that league, I think we had 3 or 4 total wins. Ask me how many times I pulled a gun out and shot the people that beat us. The answer is none, clearly, because it's the most ridiculous thing in the world to take a loss in anything, let alone a video game, so badly that you want to take human life. I, again, at a complete loss for things to say about that. So, yeah, so there was that. You know, I run a men's softball team. We've been doing this for about 15 years now. We have played softball for a very long time. We are not a great team. Never have been. Don't think we've ever actually won a league title, you know, the best overall team of the league for whatever season. We play spring, summer, and fall almost every year. We've never won the league. We lose all the time. I'll tell you what, I just played Monday night. It was our last night of the summer session. And we finished our season on a 7-game losing streak. Again, no shots fired. None. I am used to the losing stuff, and I have never once blamed the other person or the other team for my loss. Maybe I could have played better. Maybe my team could have played better. If you're losing at a video game, maybe you could have played better. But never at any point in time did I think, well, hey, I'm just going to go ahead and take out my competition violently and permanently. Just so stupid. So yeah, and the last example I'm going to throw out there, you guys know that I run races my nickname is the tractor because I don't go far. I don't go fast. I go far, but I run races. I've never once won one. I have participated in, I think I saw 141 different running events, be it marathon, half marathon, 10K, 5K, and then various distances. I've never won a race, but again, never did I think that I was going to hurt someone because I am not athletically inclined enough to beat them. So that, and what really kind of takes me off about this, I mean, so many things does, but like video games. So video games on the whole are how a lot of people relieve their stress. I'll be completely honest. I video game from time to time. I'm not online. I'm not competitive. I'm not into the whole esports, as it's called, where they clearly make a lot of money. That's big business right now. But I absolutely have played video games from time to time. If I've had a rough day and I want to come home, turn on my video game system and, go beat up cartoon zombies, well, then that's what I'm going to do. And I enjoy doing it. It's a way for me to relax and to unwind. It's kind of a coping mechanism, if you will. I think a mildly healthy one if you don't let it control your life, which some people have and some people do. But so I look at the way that I take it as a stress relief, and then I look at what happened in Jacksonville, and just these things don't add up. Something here does not compute. But it made me think of, maybe what are some other, kind of coping mechanisms that people use. And so that was kind of what I wanted to hit on tonight, was the kind of the right ways to cope and kind of the wrong ways to cope. And let me give you a perfectly example again, because I'm certainly not perfect. I want to give you kind of some self-discovery that I had just this month, the month of August, that I found very fascinating. And it goes under the heading of how you do not cope correctly. So I am training to run the Chicago Marathon, and it is in October. Okay. So one of the big things for me when I'm training for a race is, you've got to change your diet. Your diet has to be correct. And you got to cut out a lot of the bad stuff, and you have to train clearly. So I knew that at the beginning of August, I had some events coming up that I wanted to enjoy without the restrictions of this special diet or no adult beverages or whatever the case was. But I had said that on August 8th, which was a big concert that I had circled on my calendar, on August 8th, that was going to be my last night of the adult beverages. And then I was going to stop all the way through the race. And I did. Enjoyed that night, enjoyed it a lot. And then I went completely dry. And the week after, I noticed something about myself. I noticed how irritable I was. That week after the concert, I was just in a bad mood. Things were ticking me off. I was not having a good time. And I could not figure out what was wrong, with me and why I was so angry. And then it finally occurred to me that I had stopped drinking beer. Beer has kind of been my coping mechanism. And again, I'm not a fall down drunk. I know all the drunks say that they're not fall down drunks, but I'm really not. People can attest to that. But what I would do is, I would go out with friends. We'd go out to a dinner. We'd go out to watch a sporting event. So I'd go to a Royals game, have a couple beers. We'd go out and we'd have pizza, have a couple beers. Softball night, have a couple beers. Volleyball night, have a couple beers. Get my kids dropped off after a stressful weekend with them, have a couple beers. And so I think I was keeping this not an insane amount, but just kind of this steady stream of kicking back the adult beverages in my system, that it really had kind of turned into my coping mechanism without me even really knowing it. This was kind of a subconscious thing that was happening, and I didn't realize it until after the fact. And when I was completely dry and had not had those beers, didn't have beer at softball, didn't have beer at volleyball, hadn't gone out with people and had beer, I was sitting there drinking tea. Woo! It occurred to me, wow, I have really been overusing the adult beverages just as a way to kind of keep myself just nice and mellow. Because we're all adults here. We all have stresses, and we all have busy schedules and life and things that tick you off and things that just get in the way of being healthy and dealing with things appropriately. And I was using the drinking to just kind of keep myself nice and calm and not let a lot of these negatives affect me. And once they were gone, I'm noticing that these huge waves are now hitting me of things that are stressing me out. Getting this show going now that we're kind of on our own label and making all the sporting events and making sure everything's good with the kids and, job and money and all the other stresses were affecting me a lot more. And so I just wanted to share that with you. I noticed this about myself, and I know that we all have coping mechanisms. Some are healthy, like the running that I do, definitely a healthy way to kind of relieve my stress and to just kind of work out the anxiety and the angers. Just go run until you can't run anymore. That's a great way to do it. That's a healthy one. But then, having a drink, 2, 3, 4 times a week to just kind of take your edge off, not a healthy way to do it. And then you really notice it once you're done. So I wanted to share that little story with you because I thought it was kind of important. So, yeah, I've seen the chat room. I do the running until my knees go, and they're almost there. Yes. Again, if you're on the podcast, if you ever join us on Facebook Live, you can see the chat room as people comment during the show. So that was definitely my unhealthy coping mechanism. So I went to the site for AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, because I believe in what they do. And they just kind of give a list of unhealthy coping mechanisms. And of course, this is geared towards the people of AA, but I wanted to share some because I think a lot of them really pertain. So give me a moment here. I'm going to read these. So unhealthy coping mechanisms, and this is, as they say, actually hinder progress in dealing with stress and overwhelming situations. Which one of us doesn't have stress and overwhelming situations? And so the following coping strategies are harmful to mental and physical health. I know a lot of these are going to go, well, duh. Well, I would have said, well, duh, too, on the drinking part until I found out how it was affecting me. So drugs, of course, drugs are bad. Excessive alcohol use, ding, ding. Self-mutilation, hopefully we don't have that problem. If anyone does, that is a bad way to cope, and that is something that you need to get help on. Ignoring or bottling up strong feelings, guilty. Excessive working, okay, so workaholics, you might be using that to cope with other things. Avoiding problems. Denial ain't just a river in Egypt. Wanted to use that joke all night. Self-blame or blaming others. And that is a big ding, 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 because I see people doing that all the time. Guilty. I think we've all been there, done that. And other destructive or addictive behaviors like shopping, binge eating, or gambling. So all of these are what they call unhealthy, coping strategies. And you know what? They all make sense. As I read them to you, you're thinking, well, yeah, duh, I get all that. Except yet we're all still doing it. Okay, maybe not all. All is a little too narrow of a term. Many of us are doing it. Many of us are doing it without really knowing that that's what we're doing. We're coping with the stresses of life by doing some of these things that I just listed. For me, it was just maybe drinking a little too much. If you notice when you're not drinking, that means you're probably drinking too much before. Now, in the interest of all honesty, I did have some drinks last night at the fantasy football draft. I broke my streak of about 3 weeks. I felt bad about it this morning. I didn't feel too bad about it last night. But hey, you know what? Now we're going to go 4 weeks because I'm actually 39 days, about 5 weeks away from the marathon. So no more. You have my word. Okay. Cross my little operated on heart. So that is the destructive coping. Okay. And so, I will admit it was a big old whoopsie. I'm definitely not a perfect person, but at least I recognized what was going on after the fact. And I now am going to be very mindful of it. And as I tell you good people, if any of you who are listening or watching or listen to this later, if you feel that we need to have a discussion about this, maybe Kyle's had a little too much drinky, then by all means, let's talk about it, because it's not something that I've wanted to be an issue, but if it ever is an issue, issues need to be addressed. So that is just something I wanted to throw out there. But take a look at yourself and take a look at the things that you're doing, and then make really sure that you aren't coping negatively. And I can now I can vouch for it. It is easier to do the negative coping. It's easier to do than you think. So since we're on the subject of healthy and unhealthy coping strategies, here's some of the good ones. I'm sorry, I'm getting dried out and getting parched in the old throat area here. Here's some of the good ones. And again, I pulled these off the side as well. And a lot of these I kind of feel like are little easier than we might think. So, oops, sorry, I'm making the camera shake. Managing thoughts and cravings. And again, this was written for people who are suffering from, drug and alcohol type issues, but I think it pertains to all of us. But managing thoughts and cravings is one. And another one is problem solving. Yeah, they list problem solving as a healthy coping strategy. I feel that that's kind of what I did. Once I recognized the problem, I went to the problem solving. I now know the problem and I know how we're going to solve it. There went the voice. Excuse me. The next one, taking an objective view of your stressor. So taking the objective view of what it is that is stressing you out, that's making you cope possibly negatively. And so I've been trying to do that myself. Because again, I realized a problem in myself, so I want to fix it. One of the problems that I noticed, and I even mentioned today, my schedule. So between today and October 1st, there are 4 days that I am not committed to doing something. Okay. And I mean, that's not even mentioning work. Okay. I mean, work, my 9 to 5, the one that pays the bills, that is still a Monday through Friday thing. But I have 4 days between now and October 1st. And again, I'm talking to you here in August that I don't have something already planned. And you know that those 4 days are probably going to get spoken for if I don't protect them like a parent protecting their young. Like, I'm going to have to wrap those 4 days in my arms so that nobody can take them. But my schedule is what's stressing me out. I am constantly busy. And again, I do this to myself. I take full responsibility. I bring all of this on myself because I can't tell people no. I want to be helpful and I want to try and do everything that I can do because I feel like it's better than sitting around staring at the walls, which has been a problem for me previously. And when I sit around and stare at the walls, that's when I reach for the drink. So kind of one of those vicious circles right there. But yeah, big time, figure out what it is that's stressing you. For me, it's schedule. For you, it could be finances. For you, it could be marriage. It could be your spouse. It could be your kids. It could be being divorced. It could be being single. It could be being a single parent. All these are full-on legitimate stresses in people's lives. So figure out what's yours and then start working on the problem solving to see if you can't figure out how to manage a little better. Another one, acceptance of yourself and others. I don't really need to go into further detail on that. Who among us can sit there and say, well, I don't need to worry about that. I fully accept who I am and I fully accept who everyone else is. If you say that to me, I'm going to call you a liar face because none of us are that good. Making connections with people and managing health relationships. This is a big one. Get your friends, your family, get your good influences lined up. All right. Have them ready to help you during the difficult times, during the stressful times. I did that this week. I had a dilemma on Monday that I needed to talk to someone about. So I reached out to our buddy Joe. I got his opinion. His opinion was good. It helped me make a better decision than what I probably would have made on my own. So line up the good people around you who can help you when the stresses come a-calling, because they will. They will help you and the stresses will come a-calling. Just be ready for it. You know it's going to happen. Self-discipline and control, which they list this towards the bottom of their list. I would put that at the top. I think a lot of things is really based on your own self-discipline and self-control. Our Jacksonville situation, clearly, no self-discipline, no self-control, none. For us, the people who haven't done something so terrible, we all struggle with it. We all struggle with self-discipline and self-control. Whether it be we drink too much, or we eat too much, or we don't exercise enough, or we get too angry with people, or we bottle things up, which I think that was one of the negative ones, bottling things up. We do all of this, and that's not something that we're controlling well. If we're doing the negative things, we're not controlling ourselves. And self-discipline, self-control are big ones. All right, you know me. You've seen the show before. If you have, I am very big on we all take responsibility for our own actions. Nobody's forcing you to act a fool. Nobody's forcing me to act a fool. I can do that on my own, trust me, but I try not to. But self-control, that is big, because you are in charge of you. And if you screw up, then I might have to talk about you on this show, and hopefully I don't have to change a hat because of it. So you stay in control of you. I'll stay in control of me, or at least I'm going to try. And then the last one, it says is, I lost my spot, asking for and receiving support. There we go. All right. I said, surround yourself with the good people. You can surround yourself with all the good people that you want, but if you don't talk to them, if you don't communicate with them, if you don't let them know that you're having a problem, how in the world are they supposed to help? I don't know. I don't know. And I've been on both sides of that. And I'll give you just a quick example of the asking for and receiving support. We've talked about this briefly last season. Let's go to our social media, okay? Because social media is king right now, and we all know this. Let's say you're sitting there, you're scrolling through your news feed on Facebook, and you see that friend, and we all have that friend who we know is an emotional wreck right now, and you see them post something, and clearly they're vague booking. They're trying to get responses because they say something so vague and such, just, it seems like they're just screaming for attention. Okay, we've all seen it, right? Let's be honest, we all have. Here's the thing. The people who do that, and I have been that person before, just, honest to truly, I think the people who do that are really actually trying to cry out for help. It really is a cry for help. They are asking for help without knowing what to say. They're asking for help from you or from anyone who's read it, but they don't know what to say. They don't know how to ask for it. Just maybe a one-on-one. They maybe don't know who to ask for it. So they're putting out the broad, vague, please, dear Lord, somebody help me kind of a post, hoping that someone will reach out. Now, if you reach out to them and say, hey, George, what's wrong? Oh, nothing. Okay, maybe it was an attention play. But let's all just be maybe just a hair more aware, because I know that when I did it, again, right after my divorce, long time ago, years and years, I really didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to ask for help. I had not gone back to the church at that point, so I didn't have those connections. I didn't know how to ask people to help me. I just knew that I was in pain. I knew that I was hurting. I knew that I needed help, but I didn't know how to ask for it. So I would just put some random thing out there and just hope that somebody would acknowledge it. Somebody would acknowledge my pain. Somebody would talk to me, and maybe then I could find some steps towards getting myself a little better. Okay. That's just my personal experience. I understand it's not always going to work out that way, but if I could just plant that little seed in the back of your mind that maybe, just maybe, you could help somebody out who's having a rough time just by reaching out. If you see that very vague, very odd cry for help kind of a post, if you can help them, then maybe you've done some good that day. Maybe they needed it. Maybe they just didn't know how to ask for it, because it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. Believe me, I know. So I threw my sheet on the floor, and I still had a few things to go over, even though I see that we're 1 minute left on the show. So again, thank you guys for joining me. Seriously, thank you. I do appreciate it every time. We'll be back to Tuesday nights next week. We'll figure out what we're going to go over. Remember, you can find everything on walkingwithgodradio.com. That's www.walkingwithgodradio.com. Don't forget Patreon. If you wanted to get your donation in before the end of August so that it takes effect in September, and I can use that to help get the show out in September, then you got to get in there and do it now. So it's patreon.com. You can find the link on the website. I hate asking, but I'm going to ask anyway. So if we can get 2 new people, if we get 2 new Patreon peoples in September, then I would be over the moon. That would just be great. So let's close it out in prayer, because it's about that time. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for our evening together. Lord, please be with the families of the affected people down in Jacksonville, and just bring comfort to that whole situation as best you can, because I know there's nothing that we can do here. So Lord, keep everyone safe and bring them all back next week, and just be with us in everything that we do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So that's it for this week. We'll see you next week. Again, sorry for the delay, but thank you so much for those who joined me. And everybody be safe, be good to each other, and I'll see you next week.